Safer Care Victoria work being undertaken with the Alfred Hospital in relation to the blood glucose level work as a result of clinical errors that have been established in the hotel quarantine program. Safer Care Victoria have launched a review into the use of the blood glucose testing devices during the quarantine accommodation period in Victoria. A blood glucose level test is a finger prick test to get a drop of blood. The device used had a test lancet or needle and a main body. The needles can be changed and were changed between use. The needles was not the issue. The device in question is designed for repeated use by one person, not one use by multiple persons. And that seems to be the clinical breakdown in this case. I need to stress that this is, according to all the clinical advice, a very, very low risk of cross-contamination, but out of an abundance of caution, Safer Care Victoria and the Alfred are doing precisely the right thing in a very risk-averse way of seeking to contact all of the people involved. That involved going through 28,000 individual records of care that were provided to people involved in the quarantine hotel processes between March and late August to establish what was the potential range of which people with blood glucose level issues would have been identified. That work identified a potential 243 residents who identified as having a finger prick test based on those health records. As a result, the Alfred and Safer Care Victoria have established a dedicated contact line for anyone who has been involved in the hotel quarantine period for any information and support, and that number is 1800 356 061 and is open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week and has interpreter support services as a part of that. And in relation to the 243 residents who potentially may have been at risk from the use of that machine, understanding that the clinical advice is overwhelmingly most people had their own blood glucose level treatment systems in place that did not require that, but out of an abundance of caution, those 243 people are being contacted directly. And I can update Victorians that of that, so far, 141 people have been successfully contacted, and of that, 79 people have taken up the precautionary move of having their blood tests screened for further support. Of course, Safer Care Victoria oversees tens of millions of clinical points of interaction every year in our healthcare system, and failures like this incidence are something that is very regrettable, but that is the role of Safer Care Victoria. I want to thank the Alfred for their work they have done in responding to that and the thorough way in which they, together with Safer Care Victoria, have responded to this. I think in what is clearly a clinical breakdown, that should give Victorians the confidence that the system is in place to identify and respond. I want to stress that all the advice is that this is a low risk issue, but a low risk is still a risk, and out of abundance of caution, the Alfred and Safer Care Victoria are taking every measure to make sure that those 243 residents are supported, are given the opportunity for further screening, and if they need further support, of course, offered further support.
Was this picked up because somebody contracted something?
No, this was picked up because the Alfred's professional nursing staff questioned the arrangement. There is no evidence of anyone picking up any bloodborne virus from this, and I stress that there is no prospect of coronavirus being shared by this. Coronavirus is not a bloodborne virus. It is a respiratory virus. So this was picked up by the Alfred's proper clinical processes coming to bear after an earlier clinical breakdown.
Why did it take so long? It's been a few months since we've had hotel quarantine.
So this issue was identified in late August. The Alfred then reported that to Safer Care Victoria, who together with its staff and the Alfred staff and the Department of Health and Human Services records, that both electronic records and hard copy records required 28,000 records to be carefully and methodically interrogated. That process ended over the weekend, and Safer Care Victoria and the Alfred made their comments publicly straight after that yesterday, and that's as it should be, in quickly responding to a clinical breakdown as soon as they've got all the evidence in place and all the systems in place to respond to it.
Could you really say it was quick when it took 2 months for those records to be gone through?
I don't think it was quite 2 months, so as I understand it was quite late in August, and then over the course of September the Alfred and Safer Care Victoria proceeded through all of those 28,000 records to rule out who was at potentially very low clinical risk, but nonetheless any level of risk in these kind of matters is unacceptable. And for the sake of an abundance of caution, Safer Care Victoria, quite rightly, together with the Alfred, is going through the processes today to contact all of those 243 quarantine hotel residences to give them the support they need.